Amanda meticulously built a quiet life, where no one asked questions and she never had to answer. Behind perfect reports and unshakable routines, she hid not only the scars on her face, but also the pains she never dared to share. Until one ordinary afternoon, a knock on the door changed everything. On the other side, a voice murmured something she never expected to hear. "I know the secret about your scars." Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is Linda Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. The soft office light illuminated Amanda's face as she carefully scrutinized the financial reports on her desk. Her long, delicate fingers moved across the pages with meticulous precision, while her dark brown hair strategically fell over the left side of her face, partially covering her features. It was her usual style, a hairstyle that had become her personal signature and her shield. At 32, Amanda Hamilton was known at the accounting firm Horizon as the most efficient and, simultaneously, the most reserved analyst. Her work was impeccable, her analyses precise, but her personal life remained a mystery to everyone around her. She didn't attend after-work get-togethers, rarely had lunch with colleagues, and when asked about her life, she offered only vague answers and quickly changed the subject. "Amanda, I need these reports signed before 5, said Patricia, her supervisor, placing a folder on her desk. "And please come to my office afterward. I need to discuss the new client with you." Amanda nodded without lifting her eyes from the documents. "I'll be there in half an hour." While she worked, she could feel the gaze of Daniel, the new analyst hired 3 months ago, who occupied the desk across the hallway. Daniel was different from the other colleagues who, after numerous failed attempts to get close, had given up trying to include her in their lives. He maintained a gentle persistence, occasionally offering a coffee or asking work-related questions that gradually turned into personal conversations she deftly interrupted. There was something about Daniel that deeply bothered her, not in a negative way, but because he reminded her of a time when smiling was effortless, when her face didn't carry the marks that now defined her existence. "Amanda," his voice interrupted her thoughts. "Sorry to bother you, but I have some doubts about this quarterly balance sheet. Could you take a look when you have a minute?" She raised her eyes just enough to see the document he was holding, but not enough for him to fully see her face. "Leave it there. I'll look at it after I talk to Patricia." "Thank you," he smiled, placing the paper on the table. "Oh, and a group is going to the new restaurant after work. It would be great if you came this time." Amanda felt a knot form in her throat. The hopeful tone in his voice was almost painful to hear. "I have an appointment," she replied automatically, the same excuse she had used for years. Daniel stood still for a moment. "There's always a commitment, isn't there?" He spoke without accusation, just with a genuine curiosity that unsettled her. "My life is complicated," Amanda replied, surprising herself. Normally she wouldn't offer even this small window into her reality. "We all have complicated lives," Daniel responded with a gentle smile. "Sometimes, sharing a bit of that complication makes everything lighter." Before she could respond, he had already returned to his desk, leaving her with a strange feeling in her chest. It was as if something that had been dormant for years was starting to stir again, and it terrified her. In the following weeks, Daniel continued his patient approach. Small gestures, a coffee left on her desk on cold mornings, silent help with extensive spreadsheets when everyone else had already left, insightful comments about books she secretly read during solitary lunch breaks. On a particularly difficult Friday, after a tense meeting with dissatisfied clients, Amanda found a small box of chocolates on her desk with a note, "For tough days, a little sweet. For strong people, a small reminder that they don't have to carry everything alone." It was this gesture, so simple yet so profound, that finally broke her resistance. When Daniel approached at the end of the day and once again invited her to dinner, she surprised both of them with an almost inaudible yes. The restaurant they chose was cozy, with tables discreetly spaced from one another and soft lighting that created an atmosphere of intimacy without being intrusive. Amanda strategically chose a seat that kept the left side of her face in the shadow, an automatic habit developed over the years. "Honestly, I didn't think you would come," Daniel confessed as they perused the menu. "Neither did I," she replied, allowing herself a contained smile, just enough not to stretch the skin on the left side of her face too much. The conversation flowed with surprising ease. Daniel talked about his family, how he grew up in a small town with teacher parents and 2 younger brothers. He shared about his elderly dog, Tobias, whom he adopted from a shelter 10 years ago, and about his dream of someday opening a small craft brewery. Amanda found herself sharing carefully selected fragments of her life, her passion for photography abandoned years ago, her love for mystery books, her small apartment but full of plants. She carefully avoided any mention of her past or her hometown, subtly steering away when the conversation threatened to enter dangerous territories. "Why accounting?" Daniel asked while they were enjoying dessert. "You seem to have an artistic soul hidden beneath all those numbers." Amanda contemplated the question, absent-mindedly stirring the chocolate mousse in front of her. "Numbers are safe," she finally replied. "They don't change, they don't lie, they don't disappoint. 2 plus 2 will always be 4, no matter how much you wish it to be 5. Daniel observed her with a look that seemed to see beyond the facade she had so carefully constructed. "And people? Do they always disappoint?" The silence that followed was laden with meaning. Amanda felt exposed, as if he had inadvertently touched on a still-open wound. "Not always," she finally replied, "but when they do, sometimes the price is too high." The rest of the night went by with lighter conversations, but something had changed. A small crack had formed in the wall Amanda had built around herself, and for the first time in years, she did not feel the immediate urge to repair this breach. When Daniel walked her to the door of her apartment, the moment she had feared so much finally arrived. Under the soft hallway light, he gently raised his hand and brushed aside a lock of hair partially covering her face. His fingers hesitated in the air as he caught sight of the scars marking the left side of her face, 3 distinct lines extending from the temple to the jaw, slightly raised against her fair skin. His gaze held no revulsion or pity, only a gentle curiosity that was somehow even harder to bear. When he leaned in to kiss her, Amanda felt a familiar panic rise in her throat. She instinctively backed away, pressing the key against her palm until it hurt. "I'm sorry I can't," she murmured, turning quickly to open the door. "Thank you for the evening. It was pleasant." Before he could respond, she had already entered and closed the door, leaning against the cold wood as she tried to control her rapid breathing. On the other side, she could hear Daniel remain still for a few seconds before his footsteps slowly receded down the hallway. That night, Amanda didn't sleep. Sitting by the window of her apartment, watching the city lights that never really went out completely, she knew she had made a mistake. She had allowed someone to get close again, had started to feel things she had vowed never to feel again. On Monday, she arrived at the office earlier than usual. She left her resignation letter on Patricia's desk and quickly cleared her own desk, taking only her most essential personal belongings. By the time her first co-workers started arriving, she was already gone. For a week, Amanda ignored Daniel's persistent calls. She turned off her phone notifications and immersed herself in a solitary routine of searching for new jobs in the morning and watching documentaries late into the night, trying to fill the void growing in her chest. On the 8th day, her apartment doorbell rang. She looked through the peephole and felt her heart race when she saw Daniel standing on the other side, holding a small envelope in his hand. "I know you're there, Amanda," he said to the closed door. "I just want to talk. After that, if you wish, I'll never bother you again." Reluctantly, she opened the door partially, keeping the security chain in place. "There is nothing for us to talk about, Daniel. I've already made my decision. I know the secret about your scars." The words hit her like a physical blow, causing her to take a step back. Her hand instinctively flew to the left side of her face, an automatic gesture of protection. "How?" she began, unable to complete the question. "My mother lived in your hometown," Daniel explained softly. "She remembers when your case became news in the town." Amanda felt her legs weaken. She unchained the door and opened it, allowing him to come in. In the small space of the living room, with its carefully arranged plants and organized books, Daniel seemed oddly belonging, like a piece completing an unfinished puzzle. "How did you know it was me?" she finally asked, sitting on the edge of the sofa, her back rigid as if prepared to flee at any moment. Daniel placed the envelope on the coffee table. "I didn't know immediately, but when I first saw you, there was something familiar about you. I mentioned to my mother that I was working with an Amanda Hamilton, and she asked if you had scars on your face. That's when the pieces came together." Amanda looked at the envelope, dreading its contents. "What's in there?" "The newspaper clipping my mother kept, and a letter I wrote to you." With trembling fingers, Amanda opened the envelope. The yellowed local newspaper clipping showed a photo of the wrecked car and a sensationalist headline: "Fatal highway accident. Young wife survives. Husband dies at the scene." Memories Amanda had tried to bury for years returned with overwhelming force. She remembered the rainy night of the accident, the heated argument with her husband Richard, who once again had lost his temper when she suggested they stay home, as she was exhausted and not in the mood to visit his parents. Richard, with his frequent outbursts of aggression, did not accept the argument. Annoyed, he roughly grabbed her by the arm, forcing her into the car. He drove at high speed, blinded by anger, and didn't notice the sharp curve that suddenly appeared on the road. The sound of the impact was deafening. After that, silence, a terrifying silence broken only by the sirens that would come later. "It wasn't your fault," Daniel said softly, interrupting the flow of painful memories. "It was an accident. The news report makes it clear, even with all the sensationalism." Amanda lightly touched the scars on her face, remembering the shards of glass that had pierced her skin when the windshield shattered. "His family didn't think so," she murmured. "At the funeral, his mother said I was cursed, that these marks were a reminder that I would never be worthy of love again." Daniel slowly moved to sit beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. "And did you believe it?" "For a long time, yes. It was easier to believe her than to face the guilt I felt. Easier to isolate myself than to risk hurting someone else." "And now?" Amanda averted her gaze, fixing it on a small plant on the shelf. "I don't know. I spent so much time building walls around myself that I don't know how to live without them anymore." Daniel gently placed his hand over hers. "Can I tell you something my mother told me about you? She said that before the accident, you were known in town as the photographer who could capture beauty in the most unlikely places, that you had a special eye for finding light, even in the shadows, that many brides fought for the chance to have their weddings photographed by you." Tears started to form in Amanda's eyes. How long had it been since she thought about that version of herself? The young woman who would wake up before dawn to photograph the mist over the river, who saw poetry in the wrinkles of the elderly in the square, who transformed the sweetest moments into eternal memories, who believed that beauty was everywhere. It just needed to be sought out. "Read my letter," Daniel softly requested. "It doesn't have to be now. Read it when you're ready." He stood up to leave, but Amanda held his hand, preventing him. With her other hand, she opened the letter. Daniel's handwriting was clear and firm, like him. "Amanda, there is beauty in your scars, not because they are inherently beautiful, but because they tell a story of survival. They are marks of a battle you won every day, by getting up and continuing to live. I am not asking you to forget the past or to instantly heal such deep wounds. I am simply asking for a chance, not for me but for yourself, a chance to rediscover that woman who saw beauty in the ordinary. The scars are part of you, but they are not all that you are. When you are ready, I would like to know all the versions of Amanda, the one who was, the one who is, and the one who can still become. With love, Daniel. The silence that followed was unlike any other silence Amanda had experienced in recent years. It wasn't the stifling silence of loneliness, but a silence full of possibilities. "I don't know if I can," she finally whispered. "I'm so afraid." Daniel gently squeezed her hand. "Fear is natural, but you have already proven that you are stronger than you think. You survived the unimaginable, Amanda. Perhaps now is the time to do more than just survive." For the first time in 7 years, Amanda allowed someone to see her face completely. She pushed aside the hair she always used as a shield and looked directly into Daniel's eyes, letting him witness not only her physical scars, but also her vulnerability, her fear, and surprisingly, a small spark of hope that she thought had long been extinguished. "It might take some time," she said, her voice steadier now. Daniel smiled, a smile full of understanding and patience. "We have all the time in the world, and in the meantime, maybe you could show me some of your old photographs." Amanda felt something unravel inside her, like a knot finally beginning to loosen after years of tension. "Actually," she said, standing up and going to a box stored on top of the wardrobe, "I bought a new camera a few weeks ago. I haven't had the courage to use it yet." Daniel watched as she took the camera out of the box, her hands caressing the equipment with an old familiarity and a new reverence. "It seems like someone was already getting ready to rediscover their light, even before I showed up." Amanda smiled, a genuine smile that, for the first time in years, she didn't worry about hiding. The scars stretched slightly with the movement, reminding her of their presence. But now, under Daniel's gentle gaze, they seemed to tell a different story. Not just one of loss and pain, but also of courage, and perhaps a new beginning. "Maybe," she agreed, feeling the weight of the camera in her hands, a comforting weight, like that of an old friend found again. "Maybe it's time to seek beauty once more." If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.